My name is James Manton, and I'm interviewing my wife Bethany Manton about her profession. What is your job title?
The official title of my job is medical laboratory scientist, but it's more commonly known as medical technologist.
And what is a general description of your job?
A medical technologist performs all the laboratory testing, and that aids a physician in a diagnosis of a patient.
What is required for education to get that job?
I think there's a couple of ways you can do it, but in my case, I received a bachelor's of science in biology from the University of North Florida. And then for a year, I went to Rochester, Minnesota, and attended the Mayo School of Health Science and completed a certification program, and that enabled me to take a test to become a medical technologist. And then I was able to apply for a license from the state of Florida, because the state of Florida is one of the few states that requires a license to be a medical technologist. But I think that the general way to go about getting this profession is to have a bachelor's degree in a science-related field, and then take a year of courses that allows you to do rotations in a hospital, and then you'll be eligible to take a test.
Where do you work?
I work at Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville.
And what particular lab test do you perform?
Well, I work in the molecular section of the microbiology lab, and in the molecular area we look at viruses. So we do quantitative and qualitative testing. So on the quantitative end of things, we do viral loads for hepatitis C and HIV. We also look at CMV, which is cytomegalovirus, and that is particularly important in our institution because of our transplant population. We also do quantitative values of EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, and that's commonly known as mono. And we also do BK virus, which is a virus that can lead to kidney disease. On the qualitative side of things, we also look at the CMVs and the EBVs of different types of specimens, but we also test for VZV, which is the virus that causes chickenpox and shingles, and the herpes simplex virus. Also the JC virus, which affects the brain and can lead to encephalopathy and presents itself as a sort of dementia. And finally, we look for flu. The two types of flu are flu A and flu B. And RSV, which is respiratory syncytial virus, and that is of concern in the elderly population because it can have more of an effect on them.
What are the methods that you use to detect these viruses?
Well, we're looking at the viruses on a DNA and RNA level. So each specimen that comes into the lab has to undergo a series of steps. And the first step is the extraction step, and that is performed on our MagnaPure machine, and it takes about an hour and a half. And each specimen that comes in will undergo a series of steps, and at the end there will be a product of DNA or RNA. After that, it makes its way over to our amplification portion, and over there the sample will be combined with a type of master mix that is looking for a particular virus, and it will be loaded onto a carousel, and then that carousel will be put onto a light cycler. And on the light cycler, it will undergo amplification. And the way it does this is through PCR, which is polymerase chain reaction. And if the virus is present in the sample after the amplification process, because it goes through a number of cycles, it will increase, and it will emit a fluorescence that is caused by the primers and probes binding to the virus. And since our light cyclers are real time, we can witness this fluorescence being emitted as it's happening. So this enables us to quantitate the virus as well, because it depends on what cycle number we start to see fluorescence, and that will correspond to the amount of virus in the sample. So the lower the cycle, the higher the amount of virus in that particular specimen. As for our viral loads, those are done on an AmpliPrep TaqMan machine, which is a closed system, and we are able to just load the specimen onto the machine, and it will undergo the extraction and amplification process, and then transmit a result to our computer system at the end with how much virus is in each mil of that particular specimen.
Since you work with viruses, what types of safety precautions do you take?
We have regulations that we have to stick to. One of them is that we wear a lab coat at all times in case of a spill. Anytime we handle specimens, we are supposed to wear gloves, and if we're working on the specimen in an open environment, it's recommended to use safety glasses. For the most part, though, all of our specimen processing takes place in a hood, which has regulated airflow, so that you will not be breathing in any potential virus. And each one of our workstations has to be thoroughly decontaminated every day, and the way that we do this is through the first application of bleach, followed by an application of ethanol, and we wash our hands a lot.
In what ways does communication play a role in your everyday work life?
Communication is very important in the particular section that I am in. There are 4 employees in the molecular section, and each person is assigned a bench. So one person will be on the extraction bench, one person will be on the amplification bench. And since we have to follow after one another, we have to hand off effectively and communicate information about various specimens and patient information. Another way that we communicate is through, since we have to deal with potentially life-threatening viruses, some of those are considered critical values by our institution, so we are required to phone the physician and make them aware of these critical results, and then we have to undergo a documentation process to note that we have spoken with this physician.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for giving this interview.